Good morning, everyone. This is once again Has Malik here from the world of unconventional drilling techniques. Uh, Today, the 1st of April 2021, and I can assure you that it is not going to be an April Fool for this recording. However, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the level 1 study that you conduct as a drilling engineer, as a layman, as a reservoir engineer, even as a production engineer. You don't really have to run after a service company to do this analysis. It is a very, very simple Cartesian coordinate type of analysis in which your conclusion, the final conclusion is that, okay, if I am going to treat this whole section as an MPD candidate, then what type of mud weight and what sort of back pressure I'm going to keep when we are drilling this well. So here is a simple scenario which I did many years ago for a client. Now this reservoir here, without mentioning too much details, was a candidate, a classical candidate for MPD, but the reservoir itself had a problem with breathing stroke ballooning, and the near wellbore permeability was extremely active in this reservoir. Now, traditionally speaking, when the company or the client of mine, when they were drilling this well conventionally, this was the traditional mud weight, which was around 11.5 ppg. Now, on any level 1 feasibility study or any level 1 analysis, you need to plot the two, where basically your fracture pressure and this blue dotted line here, that's the pore pressure. Now, if you notice, the window between the pore pressure and the fracture pressure was only about, I think, roughly just below 200 psi. So it was a very, very small window. Now notice this is the historical mud weight of 11.5 ppg, so you are already fracking the reservoir. That's why no wonder that when they were drilling, even not halfway through, just like about 100 to 200 feet after the casing shoe, they were getting a lot of background gas. Now, so in this analysis, what I did was basically, or what you need to do, is to take or basically knock down your mud weight and then plot these mud weights in the open hole. Basically, if you notice here, this is a 10 ppg mud weight and this is a 9 ppg mud weight. Okay, now those of us who are used to simulations, we know that any simulation for any well section we do, it has to start from the TD. So the total depth is the key over here when you are doing this analysis. Now if you notice this here, there are a bunch of lines here, which I don't want to make you confusing, but notice that the diagonal lines are showing that these are BHCP profiles on two different mud weights. This is the traditional drilling mud weight, and anything on the right hand side of this red dotted line you will have a risk of having lost circulation. Now also, about 296 feet of, say for example, after the casing shoe, when the bit is at TD, on 10 ppg for instance, that will give you an underbalance situation. This section here, 2,650 feet, if you just look at the 10 ppg mud weight here, you will be okay without having any problem, or like, for example, like crossing over the fracture gradient. However, as soon as you have drilled 2,650 feet into the reservoir, basically for the next 1,900 or 2,000 feet, you will have a problem with the lost circulation or even a lots of BGG, and in some cases the client also faced a kick as well. Now let's go back to the second slide here. This is just a description what exactly I have just said. Now the second diagram here, what I have done is I have taken the worst case scenario. So say for example you take a 9 ppg mud weight, and then you can say, okay, let's go ahead and analyze this 9 ppg mud weight. Now if you notice this 9 ppg mud weight, the straight line here, it's basically the static bottom hole pressure, and the curve or diagonal line here starting from the bottom, that's the TD, and this point here is the casing shoe. Now remember, I said that even in the last video that we don't analyze cased hole sections when you are doing MPD. It's pure logic. So this area here, it's only talking about the open hole section. Now check this out. This difference is here, 655, 528, and 420. It's basically what you are saying, that if I'm going to use a 9 ppg mud weight, and if I start circulating the mud, by the time the TD reaches, or by the time the bit reaches at the TD, at the casing shoe you will have 655 psi. Under balance condition, halfway through you'll be at 500, and right at the TD you'll be at about 420 psi UB. Okay, now how do you decide that if you are going to use this mud weight, how much SACP or surface applied choke pressure you're going to apply when you are drilling this well? So let's get back to the third diagram here. Notice this here, that if you are going to use a 9 ppg mud weight, so say for example if you apply a 650 psi back pressure or surface applied choke pressure, look at this here, that as you reach around a depth of about, let's say about 14,440 feet, for the next 600 feet you will be cracking the well. Basically you'll be creating drilling induced fractures, and there is a chance that in the last 560 feet or 590 feet you might experience a huge amount of BGG coming back to surface. Okay, now what about if you use 420 psi as a back pressure? Well, the chances are that if you do the 420 psi back pressure, then basically from the point of the casing shoe, by the time you reach at the TD, you will be totally underbalanced. Okay, now one of the things with this reservoir was that in order for this reservoir to flow on from a stimulation standpoint, because this reservoir was always fracked at about 15,000 psi, and for you to flow this reservoir you required at least a drawdown of about plus minus 300 psi. So notice here, this section here up down here, it's not really 300 psi. So the question comes up, at what point you actually drill this well? So do you drill this well with 650 psi back pressure, or do you drill this well at 420 psi back pressure? So this is the level 1 feasibility study that you will do as a final exam in the MPD course that I teach, and then we go from there. Now this is a fantastic analysis. Like I said, it's a Cartesian coordinate based system. It is not done on any software, rather it was done on a simple single phase hydraulics macro that I showed you in the second video that I posted on the channel. So have a look at it once again and see if you can make any sense out of it, and then if you have got any questions, please post it on the channel. If you have not subscribed the channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe the channel as well. I will be bringing in some really cool stuff on this channel. I know that a lot of people are asking me for the underbalance side of things. I promise you very soon I am going to introduce the workbook of underbalance as well. Okay guys, so this is it. Have a great rest of the week, and have a good weekend, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.